So these two nitwits have been trying to, convince me for a while now that awesome episodes like Magic Jewel and Dragon Quest are actually no good whatsoever. And while I don't really see eye to eye with them on what they're saying about the episodes, I still think they're pretty awesome. I can at least sort of understand where they're coming from on a lot of the stuff they say about the episodes. But there's one particular aspect about both of these episodes that they've talked to me about, which I don't really follow, and that's the lack of action that these two episodes have. That just seems like a very kind of odd complaint to me when it comes to this show, because honestly I sort of think to myself, when has this show ever had action? When has the action in this show ever really been the reason why we watch it, or the thing that we enjoy? I mean, action in animation is a pretty awesome thing. I mean, the different kinds of things you can do in animation that you can't do in live action. Batman, the animated series, and the Hulk, whatever, any kind of superhero-based TV show. The action in those, it's like the reason why you watch it. It's, kind of a necessity, and, if the action's no good, yeah, I can see in the case of the show like that, a bit of a problem. Same thing in, films, superhero films, secret agent type films. I remember finding Quantum of Solace, for example, James Bond film, very, very boring because of the lack of action. Iron Man 2, I think, is another. The action in that is very kind of sparse. The other sort of problem you can have, with films like Die Another Day, most of the Bourne films, probably Batman Begins as well, a big problem with a lot of those films, I think, is the action in that isn't shot particularly well, and the action isn't, particularly gripping, and the effects on the action isn't very good. Yeah, I can see why in, superhero and secret agent type stories, how, not having particularly good action or having a real lack of action, that can be a problem. But in My Little Pony, no, I can't really follow why any kind of lack of action or not particularly good action would be a real sort of problem in any type of episode, And actually, I sort of asked these guys in the past, when has this show ever had good action? This show has never really, sort of gone down the action path of things. And often the thing that comes back to me and says, really? Well, what about, the Changeling fight in A Canterlot Wedding, or the fight with the Manticore in Friendship is Magic Part 2? I'm like, those were action scenes? Really? I mean, honestly, I think of action scenes, I think of, a good, 2 or 3 minutes of, really gripping fighting that keeps you on the edge of your seat, and all I really remember about those scenes are the comedy, really. The fight with the Changelings, all I really remember is Pinkie Pie's party cannon, and the fight with the Manticore, all I really remember is Rarity saying, "My hair!" Sorry, that was a really bad impression. And actually, I have been back and watched these scenes, just, to properly understand what they're talking about here. To be honest, in the grand scheme of things, compared to, action in films and superhero-based TV shows and everything, they're not particularly good action scenes. They're not particularly long. They're not shot in any kind of spectacular kind of way. There's nothing particularly creative about the choreography in them. They're just very sort of basic kind of fight scenes, and the only real memorable thing about them is the comedy in them. So yeah, I really just do not follow this kind of argument about, why episodes like Magic Jewel and Dragon Quest needed action. I don't understand why action would be any kind of necessity in this kind of show. And to be honest, the action in the show up until this point hasn't been anything particularly spectacular, to be honest. The reason I bring this up now, however, is because the episode this week, Daring Don't, actually did have some quite good action. I think that's the first time I have really enjoyed the action sequences in this show. That the fights that Daring Do was having with the various cats and everything, that was actually very good. But I would still maintain that action is certainly not any kind of necessity for me. I'm not going to say an episode is bad just because it doesn't have action, or it has bad action or anything like that. I don't watch this show for action. It's just basically what it boils down to. So, you want to talk to me about why Dragon Quest or Magic Jewel are bad because of a lack of action or because of poor action? No, actually, it's a lack of action in the case of those two episodes. Doesn't bother me in the slightest. But with that said, I did enjoy the action scene in Daring Don't. And I also want to clarify that even though I don't see eye to eye with them about the action in Magic Jewel and Dragon Quest, these two guys are still pretty damn awesome people, and if you haven't already, you should absolutely check them out. Okay, that's that, guys.